Yippee-yay, there'll be no wedding bells for today. I got spurs that jingle, jangle.
Hi everyone, Jim here. Welcome to my channel, Mystery and Mayhem. I know my videos this last month have been a little spotty. I was going gung-ho there with June on the Range stuff, and then there was a couple weeks there where I really wasn't posting anything. It's been a tough month, I think, for YouTubers, for booktubers, and it makes it a little tough to come on here and and do videos like normal. But I think I did a few good June on the Range videos, and I feel that I didn't let Michael K. Vaughan down for June on the Range, but I did want to get one final one in for June and do a bit of a June on the Range update. I had a lot of fun, actually. I mean, other than all the other stuff, I had a lot of fun this month with June on the Range. I mean, I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of watched a lot of movies. And I played some Red Dead Redemption video games now and then. So it was a really good month in that regard. And I hope everybody else had a lot of fun. I mean, Westerns are just fantastic. And once the month is over, I'm still going to keep reading Westerns. I always have, but probably not quite as intense as I did in the month of June. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through with you what I read this last month. Actually, let me do the movies first that I watched. I'll go through the movies that I watched this month, and then we'll go through the books that I read. So the movies, and I hope I got them all. I watched a lot of movies, but I might have forgotten to write one or two of them down, and I've forgotten them. But okay, I'll go in order of the ones I watched. I watched Ride the High Country with Randolph Scott and Joel McCrea. Great movie. Then I watched The Man Called Noon, which was an adaptation of a Louis L'Amour novel, and that starred Richard Crenna, who you might remember from, he was the colonel in First Blood, Sylvester Stallone's First Blood. Now, The Man Called Noon, it's the book I can recommend, but the movie, I can't really recommend the movie. It wasn't the greatest movie. It was a bit of a disappointment. It could have been done much better. But I watched the original 3:10 to Yuma, rewatched, with Glenn Ford as Ben Wade and Van Heflin as I forget the character's name now, but really, really good movie. I mean, I love both the adaptations. Glenn Ford did an incredible job in this movie. He really did, and I think probably in the remake of 3:10 to Yuma, I think Russell Crowe probably tried to channel a little bit of what Glenn Ford had going on in the original movie. It was so good. The endings were a little different, but that's a really highly recommended movie based on the short story by Elmore Leonard. Then I watched Wild Bill with Jeff Bridges as Wild Bill Hickok. Now, he did an incredible job. I mean, Jeff Bridges as Wild Bill Hickok, he just acted it incredibly. I'm a big fan of his, but I can't say as the movie was the greatest as I enjoyed it that much. A lot of flashbacks. There was a few points in there that were okay, but all in all, the movie itself didn't hold up too well, which was unfortunate because, as I said, Jeff Bridges did such an incredible job on it. The next movie was My Darling Clementine, which is a favorite of mine. I remember watching that as a kid on late night television, and it stars Henry Fonda as Wyatt Earp, and it portrays the gunfight at the OK Corral. Although it's very highly fictionalized, it was nothing like the original story. But the movie itself, beautifully filmed, very well done. Like, I really, really enjoyed that movie. The next movie I watched was Flaming Star starring Elvis Presley and directed by Don Siegel. Really good movie, very underrated movie, you know. And Elvis, for being who he was, and you can knock him all you want, he did an incredible job in this movie. Really well done movie, and if you can find it, give it a watch. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Then I watched The Man from Laramie with Jimmy Stewart in the main role, and this is directed by Anthony Mann, and another, you know, very solid Western, really good movie. And the final one I watched just the other day, as a matter of fact, was Cowboys and Aliens, which was a lot of fun. And that starred Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford, and the title kind of speaks for itself. But it was a lot of fun, and we did enjoy the movie. So now I'm going to go through the books that I read in order of reading. I read Louis L'Amour. I started out with Louis L'Amour's Showdown at Yellow Butte. Now this was a pretty normal, you know, formulaic Western for Louis L'Amour. It was an early one, but there's a couple points of brilliance in this. Now, the gang, the bad guys, shoot one of the townspeople. And, you know, you think that's the end of it, but that person's wife comes into the story in a very small part, but a very brilliant part. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but if you do read the book, and I just thought it was a very, a little bit of a nice point of brilliance in the story with that townsperson's wife and what she did, and the follow-up with her with other characters. I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's a good book. And Louis L'Amour is always a good read. I mean, even his lesser novels, I still have a lot of fun with. You can't go wrong with Louis L'Amour. So yeah, Showdown at Yellow Butte. Next one I read was Zane Grey, The Border Legion. Now, Zane Grey isn't one of my favorite Western writers, but, you know, he did write a lot of solid Westerns. This one, unfortunately, wasn't one of my favorites. Very kind of melodramatic. But, again, it had some good points to it, and I did enjoy reading it. He's kind of good at description. You know, he can convey a mood very nicely. But there was a lot of, like, it was written in 1916. So there's a lot of kind of, a little bit of melodrama in there that I wasn't a fan of. But, yeah. It's Zane Grey, so I mean, people either love him or hate him, and you know, as I said, he's not one of my favorite Western authors, but give it a shot. Now, I read 3 anthologies over the month of June, all brilliant. I mean, I can't say enough about the stories in these 3 anthologies. I was really, really impressed, actually. And a lot of these authors I was introduced to for the first time through these anthologies, and I really enjoyed them. So the first one is The Killers, edited by Peter Dawson. And this has the original paperback adaptation of 3:10 to Yuma by Elmore Leonard. It's got stories in here called Renegade by Thomas Thompson, Killer's Dark by Vern Athanas, Into the Guns by Will C. Brown. You know, it's got a story in here by Steve Frazee, which I was introduced to in these anthologies, and I'd never really heard of before, and he's really good. I really enjoyed his work, and that's called Learn the Hard Way by Steve Frazee. And there's a few more, but and a very thin paperback. I think there's 11 stories in here, but really good. Now, these next 2 anthologies are part of a series of 11 anthologies called the Best of the West series, and I happen to have the Lawmen and the Gunfighters, and every story in these 2 were a jewel. I mean, just drew me in. Just absolutely fantastic stories, and you know, some of the authors you might recognize. Again, there's Steve Frazee, who I hadn't heard of before. He's in this one, The Lawmen. The Bride Comes the Yellow Sky by Stephen Crane. There's an Ernest Haycock story in here, Frank Gruber. Talmadge Powell, Star for a Warrior. Really, really, really good story. Edward D. Hope did a story, The Graveyard on the Hill. Theodore Sturgeon did a story called The Sheriff of Chaiute. Brian Garfield did a story called The Peace Officer. Donald Hamilton has a story in here. Wayne D. Overholser has a story, and I desperately want to look for the rest of the books in this series. And then there's the Gunfighters. Same idea as the lawmen, but they're dealing with gunfighters as opposed to lawmen themselves. And again, you've got stories by Clay Fisher. Wayne D. Overholser does another one in here. Elmore Leonard has a story called Jugged in here. Bill Pronzini has a story. Donald Hamilton has another story called The Last Gunman. So yeah, just you can see the list on the back there for the Gunfighters. And does the Lawmen have a list too? There's a list of the stories in the Lawmen. I love these anthologies. Absolutely love them. Next book I read, a double Western by Ray Hogan. Bullet for Mr. Texas and the Marshal of Babylon. Now this deals with this character called Sean Starbuck, and he's looking for his older brother who left home years ago, and their father died, and Sean Starbuck has to find his older brother so they can settle the estate. Apparently there was a lot of money, and a lot of property, and it can't be settled until Sean Starbuck finds his older brother who wants nothing to do with the family anymore. So these are his adventures as he searches for his older brother. And Ray Hogan, really solid writer, very, very enjoyable stories. I really enjoyed them. Now the next one I read was The Outlaw Josie Wales, or the original title Gone to Texas by Forrest Carter. I love this story. This has become one of my new favorite Western stories after reading it. I mean, I loved the movie initially, and I hadn't read the story up until this last month. And highly, highly recommended. There's a sequel to it called The Vengeance Trail of Josie Wales, and I have that in another volume, and I'm going to read that sometime soon. But I love that. Now, I strayed a little bit from the traditional Western, and I read modern kind of Western lawman, Joe Pickett. The book was called Stormwatch, and that's written by C.J. Box, featuring his character Joe Pickett. Really good. That's the first one of his I'd ever read, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to look for more of these. I think I have one in hardcover, which I haven't read, but I'm going to keep an eye out for more of these. I really enjoyed that, kind of along the lines of Longmire. Remember the Longmire series? So, and I've read a few of them too, and those are really good. So this was just I needed a bit of a break from the traditional Western, and this fit the bill, and it still fits under the June on the Range tag. So yeah, very, very good. If you haven't read C.J. Box, give them a try. I think you might be pleasantly surprised. So speaking of getting a little tired of the Western, I think maybe I had a little burnout with reading Westerns. I started to read a J.T. Edson novel about his floating outfit. It's a floating outfit story, and this one's called From Hide and Horn. And I kind of DNF'd it because it wasn't grabbing me, and I don't know if it was because of the writing or because of the, like I said, I was kind of burned out on Westerns, so I'm going to put this one to the side because I have about 10 of these or so on my shelf, and I'm going to give them another try later on down the road. When I don't have quite so much Western burnout. Couple others worth mentioning. This really isn't a Western, but I'm reading This Hallowed Ground, and this deals with the American Civil War from the Union side of the tracks, and it's a historical nonfiction, obviously, and I read these a little slow. Like when I read a historical nonfiction, I really have to focus on it. So it takes me a little longer to read this kind of stuff than it would like a fictional story. But I'm really enjoying this. Like, I really want to learn more about the American Civil War. I mean, I know bits and pieces. I know some of the people and some of the events. but I don't know the motivations behind it, and a lot of the nuances of the war itself. So I really want to learn more about it. So I have a few more Civil War novels. This one, then I have nonfiction called The Confederates from the Confederacy side. So I want to read these. I want to learn more about it. So this kind of fits in with June on the Range. It's not a Western per se, but it's set in that era. So I thought it was safe enough to read in June, or start reading anyway. Like I said, it's taking me a while because I really have to focus on it. And just for fun, I've been reading, bits and pieces of this, Poker According to Maverick. I mean, I'm a bit of a poker player. I haven't played poker in a while, but this is kind of told from Brad Maverick's point of view and giving tips and tricks on how to play poker. And I love this old paperback, and it's a lot of fun to read. So that's what I've been reading. And I've been playing, as I said. You might have seen my live show with Gareth a few days ago, where we talked about the game Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, that's a game that I absolutely love. It's one of my favorite video games of all time, so I've been playing a bit of that when I get a chance. I try not to play too often, but that's a nice game to revisit and just kind of lose yourself in the whole Western world. But that's all I wanted to talk to you guys about. I know I haven't really been posting as much as I usually do, or as much as I should, but that will be remedied soon. And I know I didn't get up to reading a story like I wanted to. I wanted to read a short story out loud, and I was waiting to hear back from people to see if I could get around any copyright issues, but unfortunately I didn't hear back. But that still might happen. If I do hear back from someone, that I had emailed, or I can find a story that's in public domain, I'll probably do that. But it won't be in June, unfortunately, now that June's, over in a day or two. But yeah, anyway, I will let you guys go. I hope everyone's well. You guys take care and keep reading.